tunakwanga na siku moja tu ya kupiga kura, unless kama sasa tunataka kufanya venye tunafanya, because nimeangalia article 1 of this constitution, inasema sovereignty of the people and supremacy of this constitution. Inasema all sovereign powers belongs to the people of Kenya and shall be exercised only in accordance with this constitution. Wanasema the people may, optional, they may exercise their sovereign power either directly or through their democratic elected representatives. By doing it directly, it means we storm the parliament, we storm the state house, we are exercising it directly, because the constitution says people may, but before that, people shall exercise the power in accordance with this constitution. So at least hizo ndo vitu mimi zinanifurahishanga nikianza kusoma constitution na article 37, which requires us to go to the streets to picket, demonstrate peacefully, to present the petitions. So I think Binti, are you ready to run for 30 minutes at least, tuchangamshe hawa vijana huko chini?
Yeah.
Intakana useme with the accent. Be, are you ready?
Unanichosha vibaya.
Okay. Karibu sana kwenye mic Binti. Asante.
Hi, hello people. How are you? So tomorrow, you guys said it's the birthday of the Constitution, and what I want to know, by the way, because I have to admit, I only started reading this thing recently, like in the past 3 months or so. So why don't we get taught it like in school, from nursery to whatever? Like they just inject some small information, some small doses here and there, you know? Anyway, so yeah, tomorrow is Katiba Day. I want to hear from you guys. Are you showing up to the streets? And who's bringing cake, by the way? We can't have a birthday without a cake. Who's bringing the cake? Kenyan Voice, are you ready to speak? Kenyan Voice.
Yes, I can speak. Thank you, Binti Africa. Sante Keoti Wanyama. So kitu yenye mimi naweza ongea je constitution. I think Wakenya lazima tukue careful history ya watu kusaizi kwanza kuongea story ya ati bloated government, referendum. The moment tutaanza history ya referendum, hii conversation yote itachange from governance na itakuwa story ya politics, na sio wataanza kuingiza maneno zingine zenye itafika time tutashindwa Kenya tunachagua. Itafika wataeka vitu, so there'll be good things in there and then there'll be bad, terrible things. I think mmesahau story ya BBI. But people have forgotten BBI. So things will be inserted there that we don't want, and then they force us to pick between two things. You have to pick either this one or the old one. So I think right now tuko na shida mingi. Story ya constitution yetu, those of you who here are older, watu wenye wako almost, especially millennials. Millennials mnajua hii process ya constitution making ilichukua how long and how many people it took. Now, what has happened over the last 10 years of the probably 15 years of this push to implement the constitution is that kuna vitu zimekuwa hijacked. Na hii ilianza immediately venye Uhuru aliingia. I don't know if you guys remember. The first thing that Uhuru did, I think Raila at the time tried to push for another referendum in 2013. And the thing that, and you know what Raila always does with these referendums from back in the day. So he uses these four things to try and I may be wrong, but I think now, with hindsight, that he uses these things to remain relevant. So what he did at the time, 2013, Uhuru, to counter that push, pushed for MCAs waongezewe packs na salaries. And that was the beginning of maneno ya making this feel like a bloated government. It's not bloated, people. It is the salaries that are too high. Now, here's and many people like to compare Kenya to the US because many of these the things that we put in our constitutions, we borrowed from the US. But it's not exactly the same. Now, the US, for example, has 3,500 counties. You know, Mweru was saying here, oh, a governor in the US compared to a governor in Kenya. No, we cannot compare the two people. A governor in the US is in charge of about 45, you know, in some states, maybe 40 million, 50 million people, right? In Kenya, some governors are responsible for very, very few people. So the counties in the US, in 3,500. So some counties have even like over 1 million people, the urban counties. So I think the problem, what happened when we were adopting our constitution, tulichukua the county unit. So in Kenya, instead of having states, tukasema, okay, let's have counties. And then tukuwe na county governor, which in the US, no, they don't have county governors. They have state governors, right? So ikachanganyisha watu. So now we have small local authorities in Kenya, and then we have people who want to behave like governors in the US. And therefore, you know, they want big salaries. They're behaving like they are really governors, which I don't think they are. And now, if you allow me just one more minute, before 2010, before our new constitution, tulikuwa na county councils, tulikuwa na city councils, I think na tulikuwa na, what was the other one called? I think it was called, there was 3 of them, county councils, municipal councils, county councils, and city councils. Kulikuwa na around 67, I was reading this the other day, kulikuwa around 67 municipal councils, kulikuwa na 43 county councils, na kulikuwa na 3 city councils. So now, city councils ilikuwa Nairobi, Mombasa, na Kisumu. Now all of these, we converted, post-2010, we converted them to like 47. So to reduce. And then kulikuwa na councillors. Back in the day, kulikuwa na almost 3,500 councillors back in the day. But the difference now is that now we are paying the people who used to be councillors much more money. We are paying people who used to be chairman of county councils or city councils or municipal councils much more money. So the problem is not representation. The problem is the salaries. Salaries are bloated. People are feeling these people have made themselves to be more important than what they should be. So government should be where people come to deliver services for the people, not to become rich. So mtu hafai kuingia kwa gavaki expect that we should pay him a lot of money. No. So the problem is the salaries, and that's where the salary SRC has gone wrong. SRC means why would the governor of Nairobi, where they make so much money, the county collects so much revenue, alipwe the same amount of money, na somebody in a small rural county, like I don't know which one I can say, for example, but a small rural county where there is no revenue, we send so much money there, and they earn the same money. So SRC ndio me to fail. And that's where I land. Thank you, guys. Please, maneno ya constitution, forget about it. Our constitution is good. Let us deal with the problems of remuneration. We are paying these people too much money for what they're doing for us. So that's where I land. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kenyan Voice. I don't know if you guys have seen this picture of a comparison of the GDP, compared like for different countries. The comparison, yani everybody is sort of level, so some are higher, but Kenya is all the way to the sky. Why are we paying people so much to do nothing? Why do we allow that to happen? Anyways, Glass King, I know you were here before. Can you speak now? Can you hear me? Sama.
Before you give it to Glass King, I wanted to ask Kenyan Voice something. Kenyan Voice, we recently had Dr. Ikuro Koch here, Dr. Kurekot is one of the members of the COE, Committee of Experts, people who drafted and wrote the 2010 Constitution. And he admitted to us that he said here publicly that the Constitution is not perfect, and he has to agree that maybe they rushed some things. They didn't know how they'll turn out later. But if he was given the chance to write it today again, he'd change a lot of things. And there are even some positions that he'd scrap off. And that even reiterated it in his the 2019 Punguza Mizigo Constitution. What do you say about that? Because if the author of the Constitution said some articles need to be changed, needs to be amended, what makes you believe it is perfect the way it is?
Constitution is not perfect. There's no constitution in the world that is perfect. That's why you hear, like in America, they have like these things that they like to
I
call.
can't hear Kenyan voice. Anaongea Wanyama?
Yeah, he's answering.
Unanisikia?
Oh, let me drop. I can't hear him, and I just asked him.
Can you hear me, Binti Africa?
Yes, I can hear you. If you just give it a second, for Kawino is gonna drop and then he's gonna come back up so he can hear you. But in the meantime, let's just go to who had I said? Oh, Glass King. Lakini, where's he gone? Okay, so let's go to Sun. Lakini, don't forget your answer because Kawino's coming back.
Binti Africa.
Hi, how are you? Good evening.
Good evening to you. Wanyama. KOT. Mkopoa wote, sindio? Now, let us not forget that we are this, as much as we about our Katiba, let us not forget that we have somebody who really fought it. And if you try to introduce some things, you'll be so happy kufanya nini, to bring in things ambazo mwenyewe atafurahia. Yes, the Katiba ileta vitu ambazo people, women reps, MCAs, blah, 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 all doing one job. Hatujui hata wengine kazi zao ni gani. But as much as tunafaitia tunataka tubadilishe vitu kadhaa, the butcher of Sugoi, that's what is waiting for. Anyway, penye ataingilia. So guys, let us just be careful. We fight the war that we can win, not a war that will give these guys a leeway to bring in things that will suit them. That's just what I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sam, for your submission. Kenyan Voice, I think Kawino is back. I think he asked you about one of the writers of the Constitution admitting that he would change some things about it. Kawino, can you hear Kenyan Voice?
Hello, can you hear me? Kawino, ni Kawino ama ni ilikuwa KOT?
Ilikuwa KOT. Kawino, kwani umeenda wapi? Wewe, hebu fix your Wi-Fi before you come to this space. Okay, just give him a second to come back up again.
So.
Okay, for now, we'll just go to #police.
Right. Hi, good evening, everyone. Can you hear me?
Loud and clear.
Okay, I've just come because I've been summoned very loudly. Today I was planning to just listen in. But since I'm here, perhaps I can go ahead and also just give my views about what I think in relation to our current constitution. I like what somebody said, that 14 years is actually not a long time. Like, our constitution is technically still a teenager. And I don't think we need to be in a rush to amend it. And I've heard the comment that has just been made now about the fact that even one of the drafters believes that, it's not perfect. They could have done things differently if they were to draft that constitution right now. And I think that may well be the case. Although I think the constitution as is, it works out perfectly for us. I think the moment, I also want to echo what the previous speaker has talked about, the moment we start opening doors for amendment, we create a precedent. And that is something that we do not want. Already there was an MP who was talking about amending the term for presidents to be 7 years. That idea is already floating around. So we don't want to give that opportunity. But if it is indeed the case that, majority of the Kenyans feel very strongly that we need to amend some aspects of the constitution, for me, my view would be that has to be a very informed decision, backed by data, backed by research. I think it was Mweru who talked about, I agreed with some of the things that she said. She talked about, the numbers, doing the computations. Like, let's run the numbers. Let us see, why do you want to, for example, I don't know, reduce the number of representatives that we have? It has to be a very informed decision, such that threshold for amending the constitution is a very high threshold. Not everybody can wake up and collect signatures and decide, I have signatures and therefore we need to amend the constitution. So for me, I feel like, let's implement it fast. Yes, it might not be perfect. It might not be, what all the Kenyans want, but at least can we implement it fast as is, and then talk about amending it once it has already been operational? Because right now it feels like we're implementing it in piecemeal, actually. So I'm very optimistic also, because now it's like we're having this awakening. People are becoming more invested in civic education. People are reading the constitution. Even just in this conversation, you're hearing people quoting articles and sub-articles, which is a really good thing. So let's give it a chance. Let's give the constitution a chance to be implemented, because even people are becoming more aware. People are downloading the constitution. In fact, the easiest way to access the constitution, just go to kenyalaw.org when it's not down, because it tends to be down a lot, and you can find all the acts of parliament, but the constitution as well. Let me also talk about the issue about women reps, because that's also another thing that Wanyama pointed out. I had commented in the comments. I think it's very dangerous to talk about eliminating that position. Granted, I understand where that sentiment is coming from, but there is a reason why that position was created, and it is in the constitution. First of all, there's a 2/3 gender rule, which we ought not to forget. And we also have, it's actually expressly set out in the constitution under Article 97. In the constitution of Parliament, the women rep position is actually expressly set out, and for various reasons. Historical injustices, because women tend to be marginalized when it comes to things like politics. You want to have a diverse view. You want to have, when representatives are representing Kenyans at large at Parliament, you want to have women also who have voices, who are there. You also want to, I think Kenya is also signatory to certain international statutes and laws, where, as part of being, a member to those regimes, you need to comply with women representatives or women positions, or supporting women and elevating the position of women in society. So there are many reasons why that position is important. I think what we need to be talking about instead is how to hold those women responsible or accountable. And perhaps, in fact, I think maybe let this even be a separate space, because this sentiment about women reps, what do they really do? How can we hold them accountable? Are they just there as flower girls? Like, it keeps coming up all the time. Because it's a very emotional discussion, we are feeling like our taxpayers' money is being misused. Then automatically people come to the conclusion that let us abolish that position. And that should not be the case. I think that should be a separate discussion. We need to look at the objectives why, but most importantly, to brainstorm and to figure out what should their role be. Should we give them a job description such that in my constituency, I can say this women rep is supposed to do 1, 2, 3, and they are not. I think that is where the conversation should be revolving around. But we should hold them to a high standard, the same way we hold male leaders. So it's not, I feel like it's unfair to just say, the women rep position is there for nothing. It's useless. No, they're all leaders. The same way we want women representatives to be held to a high accountable standards, the same way we should hold the men as well. Finally, this is actually to KOT Sonko. I like the fact that you're talking about Article 1 and Article 37. Those are the articles for you that you are living by right now, but I want to add one more for you. I think that should be Article 2. Article 2 of the Constitution talks about supremacy of this Constitution. Everybody should remember, this Constitution is the supreme law of this land. It is the highest law of this land, higher than any other act, any other law. In fact, Article 2 even goes further to say that where any law, including customary law, that is inconsistent with this Constitution it is void to the extent of the inconsistency.
Article 2, just Article 2 chapter.
This is Article 2, sub-Article 4. Right? So it says any law, including customary law, which is inconsistent with this constitution is void to the extent of the inconsistency, and any act or omission in contravention of this constitution is invalid. So you need to remember that. So even right now, as there's so much confusion about should a presidential candidate be 35 years old or not, and there's been the suggestion that perhaps it is set out in an act of parliament. Even if that is the case, the fact is, what does the constitution say? The constitution is the overriding legal piece of law that we have. That is what you should always remember. It is supreme. It is the supreme law of the land. That is why you hear finance bill has been made inconstitutional.
Hashtag.
Yes.
My constitution, chapter 1, article 2, it talks about something different. It says the people may exercise the sovereign power either directly or through their democratic elected representatives. So
you're
maybe
looking
you
at
enlighten. Yes?
Yes, you're looking at a wrong provision. So what you're reading is Article 1, sub-Article 2. So I am talking about Article 2, which is the next one. So Article 1 talks about sovereignty of the people.
Yes, Article 1, it talks about sovereignty of the people, which belong, all the sovereignty powers belong to the people. Then
Yes.
2, according to what I'm having, it says the people may exercise their sovereignty power directly. Then
yes,
3,
so
then 3, it says sovereign power under this constitution is delegated to the following state organs, which shall perform their functions in accordance with this constitution. And then now we have some articles on Article 3. We have sub-article A, B, and C. Yeah. Unless I don't know how to interpret the constitution.
No, so keep going. So after that, there is 4.
Okay, 4, it says the sovereign power of the people is exercised at. Yes.
She's right. 4 says any law, including customary law, that is inconsistent with this constitution is void.
The supremacy of this constitution, which is now Article 2. Yes.
Yes.
Oh, is it zingine zimekuanga sub-articles? Okay.
Yes.
And I now understand.
Yes.
Thank you for
that's what
correction.
I'm referring to. No, it's okay. We are here to help. So yes, that's how you interpret the constitution. Yes?
Ni Wanyama, I am so happy. Peleke kijana shule. Asome vizuri kabisa. Thank you so much. Thank you for blessing my night.
No worries. I'm happy to help. And that's why I came up when you requested me to come up to the speaker panel. But yes, that's why I thought it was important to also introduce this new article to everybody also to appreciate that when we talk about the constitution, you also need to remember it is the supreme law of the land. So you can actually find MPs pass laws, but if they're found to be in contravention of the constitution, then they will be declared to be unconstitutional. You can find that people practice certain, cultural practices. For example, FGM, for example, child marriages. The moment they are found to be, in contravention of the constitution, they will be declared unconstitutional. So that is the point. That is the premise that you should always remember. This text remains to be supreme. And that's why right now we are saying, you should be reading your Katiba the way you read your Bible or your Quran. So that's all from me. I think I just wanted to encourage us and also to remind us that it doesn't matter what any other act of parliament says, as long as you're reading the constitution. That is in relation to the question of the age of the president. So, yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much. Hashtag police.
Hashtag. Oh, sorry, Binti, go ahead first.
No, endelea tu.
Okay, hashtag, I wanted to ask something. I've heard you talk about the suggestions that people have been saying, the one for scrapping off the women rep seat. There was also another one. I think personally I've been for scrapping off of these nominated MPs, because I think nominated MPs don't represent any member of the public. They specifically represent their political parties and their political masters. Because do they represent anyone? And on women rep seat, I want to comment about that.
Yeah, I think I would agree with you in relation to the nominated MPs, because quite honestly, they just go to parliament to represent the interests of the party. And you'll find those nominated MPs would technically say they cannot say anything against what the party policy is. So where it comes to elected representatives, that's where I'm more adamant about, because elected representatives literally are elected by the people. But where it comes, we're talking about nominated people who are just there to serve political party interests. I see why not. Why not review that policy? Why not review that those provisions?
Okay. In the, now I said I won't comment about this, but okay, let me just do it. In this same constitution, the parliament, there is no specific seat for women rep, unless I've not come across it. But again, you said the problem is not the seat. The problem is if we want to hold them accountable, we can hold them all accountable, all the elected members, just like we've been doing with the presidency and everyone else. Is the seat, are the women reps in parliament to represent specifically women of the counties, or they are also leaders to represent everyone else? Do they get bursaries like the members of parliament? And if they get the bursaries, the CDF funds, do these CDF funds go to help the girl child in the schools, or they issue them to everyone, even the male child?
Okay, let me start by just pointing you to the relevant provision first before I comment on what you said. So this is Article 97. Article 97, sub-article 1B. So 97.1 talks about the National Assembly consists of, then we talk about B, so 47 women, each elected by the registered voters of the counties, each county constituting a single member constituency. So it's actually provided for in the Constitution that they are elected members of the National Assembly. As relates their role, to be honest, I need to look more into that, whether they actually do get bursaries, whether they actually have, budgets to perform their mandate. And that's why I think my suggestion is to you guys, the co-host and the host, please maybe put out a session for us to actually go into this issue about women reps and what they're supposed to be doing. I don't know how it works on the ground, but what I know is they are elected members of parliament pursuant to the Constitution. It is there. So abolishing that position means going through a referendum to amend the Constitution.
Thank you. I actually just saw that it is provided in the Constitution. The second one, you've given me a right answer again. Maybe we should organize another space for this so that you, the legal practitioners, could go deep into it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, #police and Kawina, for your questions. I was going to allow Kenyan Voice and Kawino to just have your discussion. Kenyan Voice and Kawino, can you hear each other now?
Yeah, I can speak if he can hear me.
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. Yeah, so I think ulikuwa umeuliza kama if Okuro Accord said this thing is not good, it's not perfect.
Yes. Actually, I said he did not say it's not good. He just said there are a lot of things that if he could do again, if he could do this thing again, he would have done it differently.
Yeah.
That there are things that they probably did them so fast without thinking about the repercussions later. Because at a amendment of the Constitution, if we have to do the amendment of this Constitution, signatures will be collected, zitapelekwa IBC kisha verify, zitapelekwa kwa county assemblies, zikishapelekwa kwa county assemblies watavote, which they can even vote it down. If they happen to approve it, itapelekwa kwa National Assembly and Senate na parliament ikiapprove, itakuwa forwarded to the president ndio assign. You see that process alone inakuonyesha pekee the parliament iko protected in a way that hao ndio wanaweza amend the Constitution. Sisi tunaweza collect the signatures, yes, but it has to go through them.
Okay. Yeah, so I sort of agree that there's no constitution that is perfect. Even ukiangalia, and that's why on our constitution, there is an article for amendments and the process of amending the constitution, because the constitution, obviously, it's the supreme law of the land. And you can say that it is a collective conscience of the people. That's how we exercise our collective conscience. But then again, if we want to change something, then we have the right to change it. And that's why there is a provision for amending the constitution. But I think the important thing is to figure out, remember that it took 15 years to come up with a constitution. Kulikuwa na so many congregations of so many people, thousands of people, which Okuro Okot was one of them, right? So even as he says, he's one of the people. So even as he says that he feels that there are some things that are not working well and we can change them, yes, we can change them in the manner that is provided within the constitution. But maneno ya kuenda kukaa kwa backrooms, the way they were doing the BBI thing, that is what we need to be careful with. Otherwise, they'll insert things that we don't want and force us to pick something. And I mean, we know the problem in Kenya actually is not the constitution. Might have some problems, obviously, yes, some things that we don't like, but for most part, our problem is governance. The president flouts the constitution. Parliament flouts the constitution. They write laws that are not consistent with the constitution. So it's not about the constitution. I think that the main problem is just governance, and just as a people, I think just we don't have integrity, and we have not, or even if we had it, we have not shown or exercised integrity. And then just let me reiterate one thing that I said before, because this is the one thing that is very popular with many people, is that we have a bloated government. We had 3,500 councillors. We had about 175 local authorities before. We had all these local authorities had chairpersons and mayors. Now we have 47 governors, and we have about 2,200 MCAs. 2,200 MCAs compared to what we used to have, 3,500 councillors. The problem, again, is not representation, in my humble opinion. It is just we are paying these people much more money than we should pay them. Thank you. I hope I answered your question.
Yes, you did.
Binti, can I?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so this is Wanyama. So I wanted to also chime in, and just an additional point to this is, I think as Kenyans, we need to get to the point where we accept or try and normalize that the Constitution of Kenya is a living document. It's not a cast on stone. I think that's an important part for us to start embracing. Like the creators of the 2010 Constitution, however much goodwill they had, retrospection, all those kind of things, it's not a pitch perfect kind of documentation like the Torah, the Moses Torah, that God gave, let it be done as well. The 2010 Constitution, it's something we can change when it's not serving purpose, or as well, it's something that at some point, maybe representation at this point, it might be working. Maybe when they were creating the 2010 Constitution, based on hindsight, they were trying to solve the problems of the past. If we get to a time T and we realize that, maybe the term limits are not proper, things like those. I know the term limits are a problem and topic not to dive deep into it, especially now in Kenya. But my point is, let us start treating the Constitution as a living document that is supposed to sort the current needs and the immediate future, or as well, the long-term needs that we have. If we work from that perspective, then we will go and start embracing things like devolution in its full capacity. because there's also the part of law that county assemblies are mandated to do. So we should not just look at the nationalistic kind of thing, because as Kenyans, we like focusing on what parliament can do. It's a bicameral parliament. Yes, it has its duties, etc., etc. But the other important part, which is the last mile part, I would like to call it the last mile part of the constitution, is things like, what is our county government doing? The county assemblies, I mean, they have kind of a mirror kind of duty with what is it called, the national parliament. On that light, several things needs to be highlighted, because the constitution we have one of the best constitutions in the country, I mean in the continent. Things like sovereignty of the people, as hashtag has mentioned. Things like it's a no state religion. Things like leadership and integrity, devolution, rights and freedoms, military deployment, like it's properly documented on how we should do it. There's gender equality and representation, which I like the part of hashtag saying, like, you know what, yes, we might agree that the women representation through the women representative role at the moment is not serving the purposes, but we might be curing one side and creating a problem in the other. So the other side is the 2/3 gender role, because we have to uplift that position of women continuously in representation. So once you cure one side, let us also be careful about the other. But the most important part, that it was a gift from the 2010 Constitution, I think it's judicial independence. And you've seen consistent, as much as they have not been delivering 100%, is judicial independence in Kenya is one of the best gifts that Constitution gave us. So ndio maana most of the Kenyans siku hizi wanaweza ringa waseme twende koti, kama tusikizani twende koti. It's that faith in the court system. So tusisahau hiyo. And lastly, the last part that is a cure for us, and we should push these ones to deliver ethics and anti-corruption. The law is very clear on all these things about ethics and anti-corruption. These last mile people are the ones who are not delivering on it. So as we progress to the conversation, that's what I wanted to highlight. Acha nirudi kwa kokoni yangu.
Asante sana Wanyama. And speaking about women representation, host and co-host, you can't put me here and then I just leave my girls hanging down there. So I'm going to skip the queue and I'm going to give one lady a chance. And I'm sorry to keep you guys waiting, but it's a bit Goja. Just 1 second. Josephine, hi, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me? Thank you.
Yes, go ahead, please.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate you giving me this opportunity. I think this topic is it has just come at the ideal time, and personally, I want to say that, as we are saying, I can confirm that just a mere citizen and mere Kenyan, I am one of the beneficiaries of the 2010 Constitution. So I can say it is doing us good when it comes to the area of judiciary. That one I can acknowledge, and I can really say that those days when you used to be told in court, you must have something for you to get justice. Actually, they are almost ending. They are no longer there. I can certify that. That one with the judiciary, I really give them echo, and also appreciate that they have also introduced the system of mediation, and it's also working. It's very good, and it's a win-win for anyone who goes for mediation as well. Fine. Now, if I were told to do an amendment to the Kenyan Constitution, or which areas would I want to see them changed and fit to the Kenyans so that it will be also an ideal for every Kenyan to enjoy the Constitution, first and foremost, I'll say that we need to amend laws, the clauses which allow the members of parliament to be appointed and reappointed for a particular office. Like you are a member of parliament, you have been elected by the people, and then you are appointed to a CS office. We need to amend that. The other area we need to amend is the recycling of leaders. We are having right now people the likes of Alfred Mutua, the likes of Hassan Joe, the likes of Aparanya, Actually, they are getting their pension right now as we are talking, but they have been appointed to continue serving, regardless of whether they are unpensionable or not. And these are some of the things that we need to amend. If we don't amend these things in that constitution, the truth is that we will ever grow old without getting to that office, because they will still continue electing each other. And remember, when election time comes, when campaign times comes, these people come with their money, wanapikia watu pilau na maji ya maiti, wanapatia watu pilau, watu wanachanganyikiwa hawajielewi, and the people do what they do not want to do. So if we can only seek refuge in our constitution, and we amend so that nobody, if you feel that you are patriotic enough and you've been a governor, maybe, and your profession was a doctor, after your 10 years of service consecutively, while you are in pension, because you are patriotic, just go and sacrifice your services as per your profession, or you go and do your business and then leave the offices alone for other people to ascend in those offices. That is an area that I would want us as Kenyans to think, and as young Kenyans, if we intend to rule this country and to lead this country, actually also we will be in a position to get opportunities also to lead. Other thing, with that area, we will also eradicate corruption and impunity. Because right now, as long as I am in the top seat there in the government, my people know that no matter what they do, they are hiding under my umbrella, and they can do anything and nobody can move them, because even in the next election, I am sure I will be there, and I will be there protecting impunity and the corruption. So guys, with this amendment, we will realize that we will be having a very short time whereby we can monitor Josephine ascended into that office as a governor with her net worth was this. What is her net worth now? And if I've gone overboard more than what I can do and I cannot account for that money, it's supposed to be retrieved, that money, and taken back to the government. But this can only be applicable if there is an act of the Constitution which allows us to do that. We will not be discriminating anybody, but we will be giving a chance to other people to rule the country, and also to minimize the issues of impunity and corruption in our country. So anybody who will be ascending into those offices will work their Kenyans, interested to work for Kenyans. The other area I would want to see it amended so that it can fit us is to ensure that also the people who are in the offices and they have been ruling with the same governor, maybe for 2 years, for 10 years or so, they should not continue remaining in that office, because these people now, for 10 years, what you have not done, you cannot do even if you are added another year. So you cannot think, you are only there to cause impunity and to cause jam. Uingii ndani na utoki nje, uko pale kuangaisha wananchi na kufanya watu wajisikie intimidated. Kindly, fellow Kenyans, can we stand firm and amend these areas whereby we will ensure that these things are no longer there? Also, we can the area of the counties and the nominations of the people who are being nominated in the parliament. Honestly, if we can have 47 men and 47 women from the parliament, that's a good number. And we have struck the balance. We don't need much more people. And these are some of the things we need to consider as we move forward on how best we can achieve this and articulate this. I am sure Kenya will be the best place for us to be. It's the best place, and it will be more actually like a paradise when we are living in this world. So let's keep praying and working hard. The other thing, let every one of us start also self-searching, because actually corruption is bad when it's done by KOT, but when I'm doing it, I just baptize it and I assume it's good. It's also good when it's done by me, bad when it's done by me, but KOT, when it gets there, that's the baptism of it. Can we also advocate and give civil education? Every one of us in this country, we have fallen that grace of actually avoiding corruption. We are falling in these traps of corruption so many times, and we keep on baptizing them. Kindly, fellow Kenyans, can we start? Also knowing that the moment you are not doing the right thing at the right time, you are a reason as to why this country is going down. You are the reason as to why our economy is not growing. You are the person sabotaging that economy. When I am doing what I'm supposed to do and I'm not doing it, I keep somebody waiting for more than 1 hour while he was supposed to be attended for 30 minutes. It's me sabotaging the economy of this country. Can we sensitize each other? Can we make each other? Can we move the education that we have passed in degrees, diplomas, certificates, PhDs, and the like, and then bring it to reality and start applying it on ourselves so that we have a better Kenya whereby everyone will be happy about it, and we shall say for sure we have attained a great country where everybody is patriotic. Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity. I really appreciate. Fellow Kenyans, thank you so much for listening to me. I believe once we join hands together, we shall make it, and we shall make our country a better place to be. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Josephine, for your submission. I'd just like to point out that somebody mentioned earlier, if we now start amending this constitution, it's going to open the door for the government to now start putting in their own ideas, like their own ideology. So it's better to just try and like figure what we have of like as of now. And if it's not working, then sure, after that we can now try and figure it out. Because like I said, Daddy, you can't just, your cars are moving, you decide to go and start changing the tires. No, just take the handbrake off and it will start rolling. It will be okay. So I can see Uhuru, your hand has been up for a very long time. Sorry for the wait. I can see we have some advocates for the High Court of Kenya. So sorry guys, just be patient with me. I will come back to you. Let's just take 3 minutes each if that's okay. And yes, so Uhuru, Kenya, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Good evening.
Good evening.
Okay. I have a few observations to make. I have not joined this for many times, but I pass through. I see KOT every time online. I have heard people say that the constitution needs to be amended to serve us better. I was involved in the civic education of 2010. I was a teenager then, but an enthusiast of this constitution. Back in the day, the constitution was very good, and the laws that were made in 2013. As members have been speaking around, I've been trying to check what has changed since then. And I feel if we can reverse where the subsidiary laws that were made to entrench the constitution were watered down, we could achieve a lot. For example, back in the day, when after the new constitution, the first IG of the police, because I feel our approach should be strengthen the human rights so that we have a voice and on ground to stand. Then we strengthen the enforcement of the law and the constitution so that we have a recourse, and then we go punishing those who violate. Those 3 steps, if we can achieve them, will be far much ahead. So let me pick an office that is very important once allowing rights to be exercised. The office of the IG. The first appointment, around 2013 when the law was made, the president was supposed to receive a single name to nominate from the National Police Service Commission. When Uhuru and Ruto came on board, they changed the law to receiving 3 names, and then later to even them nominating and taking to parliament for vetting. Now, the problem with that is that the police department is never independent. It will act at the whims. So that time, the IG had the security of tenure. Today, it doesn't have. So if we could revert to that, because I was trying to check when did it change, the law changed around 2014. It's around, I think, Section 12. I'm not a lawyer, but Section 12 of the National Police Act that mandated the NPSC to competitively advertise, shortlist, interview, and recruit the IG. The 2014 Security Laws Amendment altered this process, giving the president sole authority to nominate the IG. This now is where now it has come, police killing, police getting instructions that are not right. If we could reverse this law, if we can check where the law has been altered down, like this section, we revert it to what it was, where the president is not involved in nominating the IG, and he gets only 1 name after competitive interviews, then we could have strengthened that. I'm also trying to remember what has changed in terms of, because now if the police is working well, The next part that we need to strengthen is the subsidiary law, Cap 183, the Public Officer Ethics Act. This is where politicians and the public servants misuse the law to either do things that are wrong, to steal, to corrupt, to do what. If we can, this one, the importance of why we should strengthen this law is because the person who goes into the office, if you take a crook, you can't change him. He will go there and you are done. Because now you fight for survival. Now, if you make sure the person who enters the office is the right person, then you have an easy time even telling him to follow the law. Now, once we enforce this law, then things around, back in the day, the subsidiary laws that were made in 2013 were saying that a politician could not be nominated into an office. Then a question became, is it active politician or one who is not active? Is it one who has ever gone to politics or one who is currently in politics? That is now where they reverted the law that provided you are not in the office now, you can go anywhere. Now, we have seen the wrong thing with the politicians being also in other offices. We need also to check those laws that they changed, and we strengthened the Public Officer Ethics Act by reverting the qualifications of public officers. If we could do that one, we could also go a lot in the way. Now, there are also some other areas about having the opposition being strong and separate. We could also look at that. But now, when we bring the issue of changing the constitution, our constitution has not been implemented and failed. Those who are talking about the cost, the truth is a poor man relatively pays more than a rich man. The marginal utility of money to a rich person is lower than to a poor person. So what we are paying our officers relative to our income is obviously is high. But now, is the question the pay? Because I believe if a third of our budget is stolen and is stashed abroad, if people can receive the salaries that they receive today, but nothing is stolen, we could be doing well. So what is wrong? Is it the constitution? No. Implementation. So if we can check areas and the whole government watered the constitution properly, Ruto is continuing to water it down. If we can revert the 40 settings to 2013, all the laws that were made, where the Chief Justice used to come from the civil society and outside of the judiciary, we could achieve a lot. Now, people have talked about the women reps and what. With the benefit of history, back in the day, there was a lot of agitation around the space of women in society. And it was seen that they are put low. So the greatest achievement of the women representation is not what they do. Let us be clear about that. We can say they do nothing, but there is one thing they do. They act as a role model to a young girl child who is in school and aspiring to be anything politically. They are there to be seen. Well, when the girl sees that lady speaking on her TV, she mirrors herself. That is the greatest thing they have achieved. Not development, not nothing. Because again, I think they started receiving 100 million some 3-4 years ago. They were not receiving anything before. So I do not feel that those positions should be abolished. However, all positions that were created as equalizing opportunities, some of them were capped at 20 years for the money. The money bet like equalization fund for the counties that were behind was capped up to 20 years. After 20 years, it was never supposed to exist. But now, we have never given counties that money. That means if we have to cap it at 20 years, we have... Pardon?
Please land, please land.
Okay, so if we have to cap the equalization fund at 20 years, we need to start now giving them today and start counting that money today. Now, so for me, what I feel, one, for us to exercise our right to demonstrate and to demand accountability, because we are being stiffened every time we talk about accountability. The young people who are aspiring to shape this Kenya should demand that a police department should be independent from the executive by having security of tenure of the IG, the appointment process that's outside the president, then all laws that cause an employment or an entry into the office, they must be strictly adhering to Chapter 6 of the Constitution, including elective offices. And then corruption, because police, the people go into the office, and what they do is our problem. Corruption should be capital offense. We should also strengthen the law. Of course, there is an argument of human rights and my rights, whether you are a crowd or whether you are one. Sometimes the interests of the nation are greater than our individual interests. So for me, I feel we should not target the constitution. We will be doing a great disadvantage to ourselves. Let us check, for example, in the last 10 years, if we can get a lawyer to analyze for us what are changed, because those laws were good. I can testify they were good. But where we are today is a completely different story. So if we can analyze what was reversed by the 2 terms of Uhuru government, when Ruto was our president, we reversed them to 2013. Then this constitution will be the finest. The finest. Chapter 6, if it is followed, we'll have the right guys. That's my take. I'll be able to participate more in other discussions going forward. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Okay. So Binti,
Thank you.
this is Wanyama.
Sama.
I want us to stop second guessing and just ask the people that were there when the 2010 constitutions was coming up. Most of us are either Gen Zs or young millennials. So most of the things we are seeing are based on what we are reading, research, and people who went to school. So Senator Okiya Mtata, if you're able to come here and get questions, give your commentary on what happened 14 years ago, together with the Kuru Okot and the rest. Let me send you the mic so that you join the speaker panel, if you can be able to, before we wrap up the space as we continue the discussion. Back to you as we wait for Okiya to come up and do some justice.
Wanyama, can I pose a question to both Ndegwa Njiru and Omtata once they're here?
Yeah, you should be able to, but that's dependent on Binti Africa, the co-host.
Yes, of course you can. Hey, it's not my space, people. Come on now. Anyway, so then I'll just let you stay there for now, Farah. I'll go to Frederick. You've been here for a very long time, and Real Joe, and then Gloria. Oh, actually, never mind. Hold on. Pause a second. Honorable Okiya Mtata, are you able to speak to us currently? Honorable Okiya Mtata, can you hear me? I don't know if you can hear me.
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Oh, okay. Yes, I can. Are you able to please speak to us about the Constitution, please? And as of tomorrow, because tomorrow is Katiba Day.
Well, I think that what needs to be done is we must fully implement the Constitution before we think of amending it. Otherwise, we shall just be doing what is not logical. We have hardly implemented this Constitution. There's been resistance to implementing the Constitution, right from the elections, be it the Bill of Rights, be it the questions of integrity. Hardly anything has been implemented. And so I'm surprised that people are talking about amending it. I don't think it's time to begin to talk about amending it. Let us implement and then see how it works. But when we begin doing small bits and pieces here, it can't work for us. So I think on Katiba Day, we should demand that the Constitution be implemented as it is, and then we see what shortfalls are there. As regards the various legislations that have been said, the best way just to keep on challenging these legislations. The one on the police, I'm doing a petition. I want to challenge it, and I hope to file my petition before the end of the week to challenge the amendments that were brought in place in 2014 that now took away the security of tenure of the IG, and then also allows the president to handpick the IG. See if we can get back to a situation whereby the office is independent. And we also look at the question of the treasury. This idea that the treasury should be part of the national executive is totally against the spirit of devolution, and it also undermines Article 251, Clause 1. And so there's need to see how we can delink the treasury and put it under the control of a professional body like the way the central bank is controlled, so that politicians don't just mess around. Can you imagine if the central bank was run by political entities on the hill? It would really be a mess. We also need to make sure that we do elections as the way it is done is stated in the Constitution. And this is the requirement that elections should terminate at the county, at the constituency. I know there have been pontifications from the Supreme Court on the issue, especially, but they were basing it on they were reading the Constitution alongside the Elections Act, the section that creates the returning officer, the presidential returning officer, so that we have got this bombers thing, and then a situation whereby it's totally impossible to call Kenyan elections. So I personally think that there's quite a bit we can do to make sure that this constitution, we breathe life into our constitution. And then after that, we can say what needs changing. Otherwise, if we go out and begin saying we are changing this thing, as somebody has said, we shall just be opening the floodgates for self-seekers. And they come in all manner and shades and shapes. Then we shall end up with something we shall not even understand. And of course, the first target will be the term limits for the president will basically disappear. And there will be left with a ruler who can be in power forever until he dies. That's all I can say for now. But today I had really come in to listen, not to speak.
Thank you very much. Unfortunately, we have somebody that requested to ask you a question. Would you be okay with that? And also for Advocate Guru.
Yes, that's the question.
Okay, so Farah, if you have a question, then yes, please.
Thank you, Binti. Am I audible?
Yes, 100%. Go ahead.
My question is, I would like to raise awareness on something that most of us overlook, which is our broken immigration system. And what does our laws say about it? Because we have so many illegals in this country taking up the low earners jobs, such as mechanics, even hawkers, house helps. You have house helps from Uganda. You have vinyozi from Burundi and Congo, all these other places. Why is our country getting to a point whereby we are no longer the owners of the country, but we live as though we are tenants in our own country? Thank you.
Oh, that's the question.
Yes, my question was,
yes,
what can we do about our failed immigration system, and what does the law say about it?
Well, I don't know how to put it, but some of these dynamics are that we are part of this community, that there was an attempt to ring-fence the low-level jobs with some bill in parliament. I don't know how far it has gone. An attempt to ring-fence certain cadres of jobs for locals. But I think for me, it would be the wrong way to go, that the locals should be ring-fenced for small jobs. I would rather that we get to a point where Kenyans can also choose the jobs they want to do. We just have to manage this country well. We just have to industrialize this country. There's no reason why Kenya can't industrialize. The amount of money being wasted is just mind-boggling. There's no reason why Kenya cannot industrialize. So for me, immigration may be a law and order issue. But then again, in a situation whereby we are working towards Pan-Africanism, I don't know how that works. But in terms of giving Kenyans jobs that can give them a good life, that one, I think no outsider is taking away those jobs. We are just not creating jobs. We are just not building factories. We are not industrializing. We are not capitalizing on our comparative advantage. We are not doing value addition to our raw materials. So I would really not look at those people as the problem. I would look at leadership. A leadership that has no vision, is not transformative. A leadership whereby there's no accountability, impunity is the order of the day. And so whereby even the constitution just becomes a pile of paper and people walk around scot-free. I would really say we need to begin saying, how do we move Kenya's GDP, even if we fired and chased out all these foreigners, we call foreigners, these fellow Africans, if we chase them out, it will not raise our per capita income from where the $2,000 it is, 2,000 a few hundreds, to 30,000. I want to see an agenda that says today Kenya is at $2,000 per capita. In the next 10 years, we should be doing $10,000 per capita. The next another 10 years, we're doing $20,000 per capita. And the roadmap is this. I want to see something scientific. I want to see somebody think along those lines and say, how do we make these people rich? And the challenge of leadership is one. How do you convert the human resource and the natural resource into wealth? That's the question we must be asking ourselves. Any other thing will not solve our problems. We are not using our brains. Look at KICC. Look at the standards of KICC. One of my pastimes that when I'm in KICC is to look for cracks. This thing was done in the 60s. I was in standard 3 when they were collecting 30 cents. And I remember I paid 30 cents for the building of that building. When we would go to school, we paid 30 cents. I paid. They did a good job. Go today to Bunge Tower. How come such a shoddy job can be done so many years down the line, about 50 years later? Such a shoddy job. How can it be? Why have we gone? Why have we lowered our standards so much? How would Kenya be looking like if we had maintained the standards that helped us put up the KICC? Look at the Kenyatta National Hospital. If we had maintained those standards, what would this country be looking at? This idea that we have become idiots is what we must fight. This idea that you can have a whole department like Kenya Roads Board, Kenya Rural Roads Authority, Kenya Urban Roads Authority, Kenya National Highways Authority, doing nothing but processing tenders. Our engineers have become clerks, doing clerical work. And then roads are inflated. I'm telling you, this country, we must look at the real problem is the question of leadership and a visionary leader. We don't even need, right now we are beyond just a managerial leader. We need a visionary, transformative leader who will spare nothing to make this country move forward. And when you move forward, you'll find that these small jobs and whatever, people from outside will come and take them. I remember when I was growing up in Busia, when we were small boys, most of the people used to have cattle used to come from Rwanda and whatever. They used to be called Avalalo. They used to come and they would be the herdsmen and whatever. So these jobs have always gone there. Our people used not to do those jobs. Today we are doing them ourselves and we are competing with these people. Why? So we must take this country back. We must move this country forward. We must discuss our per capita income. How can we survive on $2,000 a year? Those are the well-to-do ones. How? We must not be comfortable with those kind of facts. We must raise our GDP. We must ensure that our per capita income is at least $30,000. That's the question we must be cracking our minds with. And we must look at our budget. What is it designed to achieve? It's only policy document. It's only policy document a government has that matters. So when we have our budget, what is it designed to achieve? When we have got zero allocation to research and development, what are we planning to do with this country we call Kenya? These are the questions we shall now begin engaging with, even beyond discussing corruption. Assuming the budget is used properly, the way it is today, is it a transformative budget? Or is it, what are you going to achieve? So those are the kind of questions we should engage ourselves. And I would invite my brother was just asking me this question. We begin looking in those directions and stop creating an enemy whose impact or whose relevance is not there in the moment. And so that's how, for me, I would look at it and move forward from there. I hope I've answered your question.
Yes, you have. Yes, you have. Thank you. And you've just made me realize I was thinking in the wrong direction, because Somaliland, which is an unrecognized country, gains almost 7 billion shillings annually through goat and sheep export, which means their leadership is looking at their natural resources to benefit the people. So thank you, Mr. Senator.
Yes, and I want to tell you right now on my desk, I have an under the table silent petition from the Ministry of Fisheries. They are telling me tuna, the Indian Ocean, is barren in terms of tuna, it's barren, except for the East African coast. And the epicenter of fish is in Kenya. A bit of it in Somalia, a bit down in Tanzania and Madagascar, but the epicenter is in Kenya. But the Kenyan authorities have refused to allow that facility to be developed. Why? Because they get kickback from Australia, they get kickbacks from India, they get kickback from Singapore, they get kickback from the Chinese and the Europeans. And so they're comfortable getting these trinkets and allowing this resource to go. And these people these guys were showing me data from the World Bank. Unfortunately, nowadays you get data, showing me data from the World Bank that it's about a 10 trillion shilling economy that is just lying there that we have left outsiders to play around with. That's the kind of things they're making. So I think if we looked at our resources, our comparative advantages, you have talked of livestock, look at our arid and semi-arid areas. What have we invested in them to make us be big cattle producers like the Ethiopians, like the others? We have not. We're just leaving people to struggle. The Maasai man with his walking stick, the Samburu man with his walking stick, the Somali man with his walking stick, the Borana man with his walking stick, they're just walking around. No support from government to invest in this area, even in terms of infrastructure, to make this thing to become our golden goose that lays the golden egg. But there we are. Thank you.
Sorry. Thank you very much, Honorable. Thank you. Sorry. Do you mind if we just go to Advocate Njiru? I think the question was also directed to you. I don't know if you have any sentiments for that.
Thank you very much, KOT, Honorable Okiya Omtata, and fellow participants. I've been keenly following this debate and this discussion. And I love the topic of the 14 years of the new constitution. And the question then, therefore, is whether we have been able to yield the expected results or the intended results from this constitution. While I fully associate myself with the submissions made by my friend, Mr. Okiya Omtata, Senator, I also understand the feelings and the sentiments being aired that it's the high time that we amend the constitution. We must ask ourselves, why are people then agitating for the change of a new constitution that is barely 14 years? In my view, we have one of the best progressive constitution in this world, and that the progressive constitution must be given an opportunity for it to crystallize and stabilize. But the fatigue is coming from the fact that we have not implemented this document. We have not put this to test. So the constitutional fatigue that is inviting members to think that is now high time for us to amend this document is being attributed and being contributed by the fact that individuals do not want to implement it. If this constitution was to be implemented as designed, much of what we are seeing today would be historical, would be a thing of the past. But the politicians have deliberately mutilated the constitutional root. They have made it difficult for us to realize the constitutional dictates because they eat from those faults. They feed from the constitutional failures. They thrive from from the mutilation and the abrogation of the Constitution. And that is why we must be candid enough to tell them that this is not the time to think about the amendment. It's the time to think about the realization of the Constitution. The biggest thing that this country has refused to move on is to cultivate the spirit of constitutionalism. The spirit of constitutionalism is the respect of the Constitution itself. And without constitutionalism, we cannot then speak about the life of a constitution. People will always mutilate it, abrogate it, suspend it, because they have not cultivated and inculcated the realities of the new constitution and cultivated the spirit of constitutionalism. Professor Kodo Gendo was very vocal. He said a constitution that has no constitutionalism is a dead constitution. And when I speak about constitutionalism, what am I speaking about? I am speaking about paying fidelity to the Constitution, respecting the rule of law, making sure that the Constitution is always the cardinal point. And then when you want to look at the true north, the reflector is the Constitution. For example, let us look at the individuals being elected. Do those individuals meet the dictates of Chapter 6 of the Constitution? And was it the intention of the Kenyans when they gave unto themselves this document that people of questionable character would then be the ones telling us how, or rather governing us? When you go and throw in a president who never defended this constitution and who actually opposed that constitution, and I do not dispute that somebody can get a Damascus moment, what do you expect if he never believed in the life of that constitution? Do you think he can live to the dictates of that particular constitution? This constitution brought forth various institutions. The reason why we created these institutions is because we wanted to diffuse power from the centralization of power. We created various institutions. We created various constitutional commissions. But the question is, have we been able to realize the fruits of those constitutional commissions? My guess is as good as yours, that the answer is in negative, that we have not been able to realize the fruits of the constitutional commission that we have created and constitutional organs that we have created, because we always have an underhand in it. When we created constitutional commissions and other institutions Mr. Tata was speaking about, for example, the control of budget, for example, the Salary and Remuneration Commission, is because we wanted to go away and leave the past where constitutional arbitrariness was perpetuated by the leaders. But you realize that we just go around it and get back ourselves to it again. Look at the institution of parliament. When we said we are going to create a presidential system, we wanted to delink parliament from the executive. And the thing was that we thought that we would have some independence of parliament and some parliamentary autonomy if we delink it from the executive. But what is the result? The result is that parliament has been captured by the executive. And they are using political parties and the strength of political parties to capture parliament. For example, the Constitution speaks about the majority and the minority in parliament. The unfortunate thing with the oxymorons that we elect into parliament is they think that if a political party forms government and that has the majority in parliament, they think that it's part of government. They fail to realize their core functions of legislation, representation, and oversight. Because if you look at our constitutional architecture, we have created the office of the minority and the office of the majority, but they are fused. They are constitutionally fused by their functions. That whether you're in the minority or you're in the majority, your work is to oversight, is to legislate, is to represent. But what are we seeing currently? We are seeing members of the majority thinking that they are in government and that the executive is in parliament. The end result is that they compromise the process of legislation. The end result is that you see people dictating that the finance bill must pass. So we have a long way to go. Part of it must be invested in serious civic education for people to appreciate the document that we have. And I remember what Sinu Achembe says in his book, The Trouble with Nigeria. He says that the trouble in Nigeria is clearly failure of leadership. And that is the problem we have in this country. That the trouble in Kenya is failure of leadership. We have a leader, or we have the leaders who want to perpetuate constitutional tyranny by mutilating the documents that we hold dear unto ourselves. And then you must realize that we Kenyans, we, the owners of these documents, have failed to realize our potentiality in putting government to check. And we have attempted to do it when we say that power belongs to the people and they can exercise that sovereignty either directly or indirectly. So you realize that the majority of us do not understand what that exactly means. That we donated power to the executive and to parliament and to other institutions created under the constitution, but we reserved some residual powers to ourselves. One of the residual powers that we reserve to ourselves is the ability for us to move to court and access justice, as Senator Mutata is doing and others. The other residual power we reserved unto ourselves is the ability for us to participate in policy making, legislative making, and decision making. But what is happening today? Today we're having a president who goes to officiate an NYS pass out, and he declares that the NYS must be trained on how to handle firearms without involving the people, without involving parliament, without invoking the doctrine of the rule of law. So he thinks that he has become Alpha and Omega. And when you ask him, what does he do? He retaliates with the tear gas, water cannons, live bullets, abductions to silence us. And that is the tragedy we have. The moment we succumb, and the moment we give in to the intimidations of the individuals who do not believe in the doctrine of constitutionalism, we shall lose the cardinal north. We lose ourselves. And so we must be vigilant enough to defend this constitution as it is. Look at the question of multi-party democracy. Article 4 of the constitution speaks that Kenya is a multi-party democracy. Why was it so important for us to dictate that Kenya becomes a constitutional multi-party democracy? It's because of what we underwent through Section 2A of the old constitution. When Moi decided that Kenya will be a single-party state, a de jure single-party state. And then we went to the streets, and then we fought, and we came up with a multi-party democracy. So it was there for us to protect it. But what is happening through gerrymandering? Gerrymandering is helping the current existing political leadership to go to parliament, to go to the minority, fish out individuals in the minority party, and take them to cabinet. And we Kenyans sit pretty thinking that is all right. It is not proper. If you are in the minority, you must remain in the minority. Because the moment you go and fish individuals from that particular side, you're completely mutilating the structure of parliament. You're trying to restructure the constitutional appearance of parliament. So, brothers and sisters,